Coming up on tonight's episode, it's our first of 2019, and we have got a bracket buster. We're putting the biggest U.S. monuments, memorials, national parks, the iconic places of the U.S. battling head-to-head, 16 of them, to determine the ultimate winner. Tonight, the Sweet 16, it's starting right now. This is Up for Debate, episode number 134, recorded January 10th, 2019. Landmarks, coast to coast. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Up for Debate. I'm Sean Jennings, joined, as always, by a man, like many of the places we'll talk about tonight, who deserves to be commemorated on a U.S. stamp. It is Matt Mariani. Hello, Matt.
Hey, Sean. What's going on?
Matt,
happy 2019. Happy New Year.
Yes, indeed. Another year, another Up for Debate. And, Matt, we have got a thrilling year ahead of us. I don't want to hype it up too much. We ended 2018 really strong, but I think we've got a great 2019 ahead of us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy. We're already like halfway into the first month of 2019.
I mean, we're 10 days in, so that puts us at 1/35th of the way through the year.
Look at you using that math book, that math textbook.
You know, I spend so much time in Excel, Matt. I think it's starting to rub off on me.
Yeah.
But we have got a great set of episodes coming up this week and next week, and I do want to tease, we're doing the bracket challenge this week and next week, and the 2 weeks after that will be our big Super Bowl, our annual Super Bowl prop bets. Coming up after that, we're going to do, we'll have the summer movie draft is coming up in early March. Following that, we will have the our next Up for Debate Presents, which will also be fun. So we got a lot of great stuff coming up. We've got to start tonight, Matt, with another bracket challenge. Can you believe, Matt, this is our 5th bracket challenge?
Yeah. You want to recap some of the previous bracket challenges that we've done on this show?
How many are you asking me to do it because you can't remember them?
All right. So here's the ones that I remember doing.
Uh-huh.
Jeopardy. No, not Jeopardy. SNL bits.
Yep.
SNL
SNL sketches. I do not remember which one won. Was it more cowbell?
It was more cowbell.
Oh, that sucks.
Pretty sure it was more cowbell.
That was bad.
That was a great one. It was between that and Jeopardy. I think that was the final.
We were so bad on that.
I think that more cowbell won in the end. You have to go back and check the tape on that.
Not great.
The other bracket challenge, of course, the most famous perhaps, or perhaps
infamous.
The most infamous, was the Super Salad bracket challenge.
Yep.
That did not go down well among many of our fans. It was a very divisive episode indeed.
Absolutely. I would say without doubt our most controversial we've ever done.
In the most controversial episode of Up for Debate.
Which that says something about us, that our most controversial episode is about soup and salad. I mean, that says something.
It was a pretty solid debate though. So if you want to go back and check that one out,
great.
That was really worthwhile.
We also had our first ever bracket challenge, Matt, which was novelty songs.
Yeah,
where we crowned,
right.
And I think probably the most correct bracket we've ever done in terms of the winner. We named Monster Mash, Bobby Pickett, and the Crypt Keeper 5 as our top novelty song, which I stand by as a very good choice.
Was that our first bracket?
That was the
challenge?
first one.
I thought SNL. Okay.
No,
I thought
SNL was 2.
created.
Then it was actually even before Soup and Salad, we did our Fears bracket, which I love. That was a great one. Do you remember which Fear won?
Do you remember?
I don't. That's not good. But
was it fear of empty spaces? I want to say
Fear of the number 13 got weirdly far.
You know what would be cool is if we were able to Google this, but we're really not. Like the only way to figure it out is to go back and listen.
Matt, that's what we call a cliffhanger. So folks, go to upfordebate.tv, click on the archive button, and all of these bracket challenges are available for you to watch and or listen. Check them out. We had a lot of fun doing them. We've learned a lot of what we should and shouldn't do, so I trust this bracket's going to be a lot of fun, Matt, and I'm very excited to do this one because you and I would say, are uniquely qualified to judge this category, which is landmarks. Iconic
U.S. landmarks.
Things and places in the United States. We're limiting it there. And we're putting them together head to head. We have 16 of them here that we are going to rate. Matt, you okay if I run down all 16 quickly?
Sure.
So
Go
this
for it.
this is the full list. We'll publish the bracket on the website, and we'll tweet it out at Up for Debate TV on Twitter. So check that out if you're listening and get a little lost. But in no particular order, here are the initial 16. We're going to narrow to one winner. They are the Grand Canyon, Niagara Falls, the Brooklyn Bridge, the Golden Gate Bridge, Gettysburg Battlefield, the Alamo Mission, the Gateway Arch, the Hoover Dam, the Statue of Liberty, the Washington Monument, the Empire State Building, Alcatraz Island, Mount Rushmore, the Lincoln Memorial, Kennedy Space Center, and Disneyland in California. Those are your 16 combatants, all truly iconic coast-to-coast U.S. landmarks. And Matt, we have to put them head-to-head in our first round where they're going to all play each other. We're going to narrow it down to 8 by the end of tonight's episode, and then join us next week where we'll take that 8 to 4, those 4 to 2, and those 2 to a single winner. Now, Matt, one of the most valuable things I think we learned during the Super Salad debacle was that we need to have a scoring metric when we do these.
Yes.
Because that's how we ended up with minestrone so far in the soups bracket and Italian wedding soup. Because we didn't score them. We just kind of randomly picked them. That doesn't work. So I was thinking, Matt, if this is okay with you, for this first round, we will score on 3 metrics, okay?
Okay.
You will pick a metric, I will pick a metric, and then we'll give it a score overall. It will be on a 1 to 5 point scale, 5 being the most and 1 being the least for each of those 3 categories.
Okay. I'm following you.
And you can pick, Matt, any category you want to, how pretty they are, how old they are, how they make you feel inside, how many tourists they get. You can pick any metric on the planet to score these on. And that's your chosen metric. And then I get to choose one, and then we score overall.
Okay.
Does that work?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm down. I think that totally works.
Now, I'm springing this on you, so you don't have a metric yet. So I'm going to give you a minute to think about it while I tell you my metric, which is when looking at these, putting them head-to-head against each other, and they're grouped in this first round by almost type a little bit, like you've got the Brooklyn Bridge versus the Golden Gate Bridge, you've got the Gettysburg Battlefield versus the Alamo Mission. They're kind of similar categories. So when I'm looking at them head-to-head, for me, I would like to score them in terms of visual beauty. That is my metric I'm choosing. Visual design and visual beauty for this first round is how I would like to score each of these on a scale of 1 to 5. Now, Matt,
Okay.
do you have a metric?
Okay. My metric, if you're going to do visual beauty
Yes.
and like aesthetic, is that your
Aesthetic. That's
kind of your
probably a
thing, is
more
aesthetic?
good way to say it.
For this one I might go with maybe historical significance.
I like that.
Maybe.
That's
Okay.
that's a very good one. All right, so we'll be
Or
scoring.
wait, is this just for the first bracket?
Correct. Just for
Okay,
the first
so-
round.
I'm going to totally change that.
Okay.
And instead, for this first bracket, I'm gonna grade them on amount of times, or cultural relevance, Sean. Cultural relevance.
Cultural relevance.
Times mentioned in movies and TV shows, in
Okay.
things like that. I think that would be a good one for this first bracket.
Okay. I love it. That's wonderful. So we'll be grading them on a 1 to 5 scale, aesthetics and visual appeal, cultural relevance, and then an overall 1 to 5 for each of these, a maximum score of 15 each. We will total them up. The 2 just head-to-head. Highest points moves on to the next round, Matt. And we're going to start in the upper left-hand corner of our bracket. I'm putting it up on the video here for the video viewers, where we're going to pet 2, I call this the sort of natural matchup, the Grand Canyon in Arizona versus Niagara Falls in Niagara Falls, New York. Now, of course, the Grand Canyon, carved by the Colorado River in Arizona. It's 277 miles long and up to 18 miles wide and a depth of over a mile in certain places. It has been established as the 17th U.S. National Park and signed into law by President Woodrow Wilson in February of 1919. Fun fact, the Grand Canyon is bigger than the entire state of Rhode Island. The Grand Canyon about 1,904 square miles versus 1,212 square miles for Rhode Island. For thousands of years, the area has been inhabited by Native Americans. The Pueblo people considered the Grand Canyon a holy site and made pilgrimages to it. The first European known to have viewed the Grand Canyon was Garcia Lopez de Cardenas from Spain, who arrived in 1540. Now, Niagara Falls, this will be a fact-packed episode. I'm just warning people. Niagara Falls is the collective name for three waterfalls that straddle the international border between Canada and the U.S. and the state of New York. Those waterfalls are, from largest to smallest, the Horseshoe Falls, the American Falls, and the Bridal Veil Falls. They drain Lake Erie into Lake Ontario, and the combined falls have the highest flow rate of any waterfall in North America that has a vertical drop of more than 50 meters. During peak daytime tourist hours, more than 168,000 cubic meters of water, that's 6 million cubic feet, go over the crest of the falls every minute. And the Horseshoe Falls is the most powerful waterfall in North America as measured by flow rate. Fun fact, in October of 1829, Sam Patch, who called himself the Yankee Leaper, became the first to jump into the gorge below the falls and survived. In 1901, a 63-year-old Michigan school teacher named Annie Edson Taylor became the first person to go over the falls in a barrel as a publicity stunt.
Now, Sean, I know that we also did an infamous episode on idioms and expressions.
Yes.
Is that where the term "over a barrel" comes from?
Sure.
I believe it is. I believe that's where we were able. I think that was we were able to figure that out on the show. I think it was a question that came up.
That makes perfect sense. Now, Matt, any early thoughts on these before we get into scoring? Any particular? Now, you've been to Niagara Falls.
Indeed.
Have not been to the Grand Canyon.
No.
Did you enjoy the Niagara Falls?
It's on my bucket list. Yeah, I guess it was pretty good. It was the biggest waterfall I've ever seen. Indeed. Very large. Very wet. Very wet.
That is what it's known for. Now,
yeah.
Now, let's get to scoring these bad boys. We have got three categories here, Matt. We'll let you go first here. The Grand Canyon and Niagara Falls. How do you rate them on aesthetics?
We're scaling 1 to 5.
1 to 5. 5 being the most.
For the Grand Canyon, now... This might be overstating it, but I'll give it a 4.
Okay.
It's very majestic. It's not only picturesque, but it's very majestic and I think visually stunning. And aesthetics not only meaning visual, but like when you're there, you could probably feel something, some kind of inspiration. That's why it's the most visited site in the US,
Yeah. I get that. And what about Niagara Falls for aesthetics?
That one I might be a little chintzy with that one. I might only give that one 2, honestly.
Okay, wow.
Really wasn't that blown away. I mean, it's a waterfall, but it's just the majesty and now I've heard that if you get close to it on the water, it's something different experience, but from where I could see it, it was a big waterfall, sure, but I think I would probably take the canyon any day.
I hear that. Yeah, and I agree, I think, with your reasoning on that. I'm going to give Niagara Falls a bit more points, though. I'm going to give it a 4. I think it is very visually appealing. The issue is, of course, the one really good falls is in Canada, and the U.S. falls are kind of the crappier falls. So not as interesting, but especially at night, they light it up. It's very interesting. But for me, the Grand Canyon's got to score a perfect 5. And I think the reason it does better than Niagara Falls is because the Grand Canyon is billions of years old, and its beauty is stable. The thing about Niagara Falls is half the year it's frozen over, and nothing moves. It's not as interesting. The thing about the Grand Canyon, it's not water dependent. It's not because there's nothing stable about Niagara Falls. It's always moving. The great thing about the Grand Canyon, it's a big hole. It's always there. So for me, that's a 5, and that gives us a combined score of 15 for aesthetics. Wait, that's not right. Ignore me saying that. That doesn't make any sense. Anyhow, Matt, what about cultural relevance for these two?
In terms of cultural relevance, one of my favorite movies of one of my favorite comedies of all time is National Lampoon's Vacation.
Of course.
And they visit the Grand Canyon in National Lampoon's Vacation. They don't visit Niagara Falls, so I'm going to give the point there. Chalk 1 point up to Grand Canyon. The wedding of Jim and Pam in The Office took place at Niagara Falls, or like near Niagara Falls, and I thought that as soon as they got married, the show stopped being funny.
Mm-hmm.
So that's minus 1 point for Niagara Falls. So I'm gonna give it, in terms of cultural relevance, I'm gonna give it to the canyon, the Grand Canyon. Also, wait a minute, the Brady Bunch episode where they visit the Grand Canyon.
That's right.
Great episode. Excellent.
Not as good as the one where they visited Hawaii, though.
Oh, totally. No, I totally agree with you on that one. The one they visited Hawaii is excellent. A very late Vincent Price making a guest appearance.
That's right.
On that episode, so cool. Oh, and Don Hope, isn't he in that one?
I haven't seen that in I couldn't even tell you. Google's a good one for that.
It is Don Hope, right?
Yes.
The
Bob Hope.
No, not Bob Hope.
Don Johnson? I don't know who you're talking about. You completely lost me. I think so. You're giving this one to the Grand Canyon.
I'm definitely giving it to the Grand Canyon, Sean.
We're gonna, Matt, in the interest of time and boredom, we're gonna streamline this a little bit.
Don Ho.
Hawaiian
entertainer Don Ho.
Yes.
Yeah, not Hope. Ho.
Gotcha.
Don Ho. He passed away in 2007, but he was a pop singer and entertainer who was from Hawaii. He appeared in the episode and sang like a song there.
Gotcha.
He was also in the direct-to-DVD movie Aloha Scooby-Doo.
Somehow I missed that one.
And was the father of Hoku.
The puzzles where you have to do the 1 through 9?
No, that's Sudoku, Sean. Hoku is
I have one hooked up to my TV. I watch Netflix on it. And
you ever see Snow Day? That's Roku.
No.
Snow Day.
Is that the character from Dragon Ball?
That's Goku.
Matt, I just don't know what you're talking about.
All right, Hoku. If you ever see the classic Nickelodeon movie from 2000, Snow Day.
Yeah. Somehow missed out on the Oscar.
She sings a song on that album, and I think also a song in maybe Legally Blonde.
Sounds like an awesome career.
Yeah,
but I'm
she's
not
wonderful.
Judging.
She's a gem.
All right, Matt. You picked Grand Canyon for cultural relevance. I'm going to agree with you. I think the Grand Canyon is seen in culture as more of sort of a positive, as awe-inspiring, and I think Niagara Falls is kind of like the city of Buffalo, kind of like a crappy afterthought, where I think it should get more credit, I just think it doesn't get it. So I'm going to take Grand Canyon on that one as well. Matt, overall, which of these two do you prefer? If you had to pick a winner between these two right now, based on your entire life's experience...
I think it's pretty evident I'm picking the Grand Canyon.
You're picking the Grand Canyon. I'm picking the Grand Canyon as well. And I love Niagara Falls. I've been there many, many times. I think it's a wonderful place. I've always had a very nice time there. I think the falls are great. I even got to go up in the lighting control booth where they turn all the lights on and off, which was really neat. A wonderful place. Grand Canyon is just better.
Yeah.
It's bigger than Rhode Island. What do you want me to say?
It's just better. Yeah.
All right. Grand Canyon wins our first matchup. Matt, would you like to find out who it's going to face in the next round?
I would.
Then we got to move on to the Battle of the Bridges, a real East Coast, West Coast battle, starting with the Brooklyn Bridge, a hybrid cable-stayed suspension bridge connecting the boroughs of Manhattan and Brooklyn, spanning the East River. Its main span is 1,595.5 feet long, with a height of 276 feet above mean high water. It's one of the oldest roadway bridges in the United States and was the world's first steel wire suspension bridge. Fun fact, commuters were scared when the bridge first opened. They didn't trust it because nothing like that had ever been built before. So the city hired P.T. Barnum to march 21 elephants across the Brooklyn Bridge in May of 1884 just to show how sturdy the span was. True story.
Yeah, that was a fact. That was a fact that we told in another episode, wasn't
Did
it?
we?
This whole episode is like
Oh
callbacks.
my God, Matt, we've been doing this too long.
Is this like one of those clip show
We
episodes?
gotta stop. This is bad. It's going up against the Golden Gate Bridge, its West Coast rival. The Golden Gate Bridge is a suspension bridge spanning what's known as the Golden Gate, the 1 mile wide strait connecting the San Francisco Bay to the Pacific Ocean. At the time of its opening in 1937, it was both the longest and tallest suspension bridge in the world, with a main span of 4,200 feet and a total height of 746 feet. Another fun fact on the Golden Gate Bridge: the bridge was built in the 1930s. Safety, very uncommon at that. People died in construction projects in the 30s all the time. But the Golden Gate Bridge was actually one of the safest projects of its era and introduced a lot of new safety technology, including workers having to wear glare-free goggles, use hand and face cream to protect their skin from high winds. The engineer for the project created special hard hats for the bridge worker, which they were required to wear at all times, which was new at the time. And in 1936, they installed a net under the bridge that cost $130,000, a lot of money at the time. But it was the first of its kind. It helped to speed construction while also giving workers a sense of security. It saved 19 men who otherwise would have plummeted into the water below. So,
Yikes.
I guess that's a fun fact. Matt, let's start this one off talking with aesthetics. I'll go first on this one. To me, this is an easy one. Who wins this? And I think it's the Golden Gate Bridge. Don't get me wrong. I love the design of the Brooklyn Bridge, but the iconic color, which, by the way, if you don't know the name, is called International Orange, I think is so It's one of the most photographed bridges in the world, and I think there's a reason for that. It's iconic. You may know it from the opening credits to Full House, among other things. Maybe that'll be part of a cultural relevance debate. But for me, I think Golden Gate Bridge wins the aesthetics battle. Because I guess the Brooklyn Bridge is more of a industrial feel versus the sort of colorful feel of the Golden Gate Bridge. What do you think, Matt?
Well, hold on there a minute.
What?
This might surprise you here,
What?
but I'm a New York kid,
Okay.
and I'm a New Yorker
Hang
through
on.
and through.
Can
True
you
and
explain
true.
because there are people listening who may not know you, Matt. Explain how your New York roots. Where did
I'm a
you
New
grow
York
up?
kid.
Where did
That's
you grow
what I
up?
am. I'm a Brooklyn kid.
You are not a
born and
Brooklyn kid.
raised,
Where did
born
you-
and raised,
Nope.
West Philadelphia.
Nope.
Born and raised.
Nope.
I'm going by my Brooklyn roots, and I'm going to go ahead and defend the Brooklyn Bridge. I think it's a beautiful bridge. I think it's wonderful. I think it's iconic, and just as iconic as the Golden Gate Bridge itself. I think it leads people to and from the greatest city in the world, New York. New York, New York. And that's all I have to say about it. It's a wonderful bridge.
That is such bullshit. Get out of it. What are
It
you
is.
talking about?
It's a great bridge. In terms of aesthetics, it's a very beautiful bridge. It's structurally sound. I don't know what else you want from a bridge. I think
Matt, the whole point of aesthetics has nothing to do with it being structurally. I would love a beautiful bridge
I'm
that
just saying
isn't
that's
structurally sound.
to contribute to the fact of it being a beautiful bridge. It's also incredibly structurally sound.
Yeah, but Matt, I call
And-
baloney on the
and
aesthetics of the
aesthetically pretty as well. It is. It's pretty. It's a pretty bridge.
During construction of the Brooklyn Bridge, they found out that their wire supplier was giving them cheap wire, and so they had to add a bunch of extra wires to make sure the bridge didn't collapse.
Okay, so they did, and they added them, and it hasn't collapsed yet.
And
so-
it doesn't even need that many wires. It's crazy.
It has a ton of wires, Sean. It's
Too
got
many.
a lot.
many.
I don't know.
Okay.
I think it gives it's part of its iconic look at this point. You know what I also like about the Brooklyn Bridge, Sean? You can walk across it. You can't
can.
walk across the Golden Gate Bridge.
Actually, you absolutely can walk across the Golden Gate Bridge.
No, I don't think so.
No, you absolutely can.
I know for a fact that Brooklyn Bridge you can jog across.
Okay, that's true. I'm not disagreeing with that part of your statement.
I don't think you can walk across the Golden Gate Bridge.
That's the part I'm disagreeing with. And actually, that leads me to the fun fact that I was going to share, and then I thought it was too much of a bummer. But I'm going to share it anyway because it proves my point, which is that the Golden Gate Bridge is the second most used suicide bridge in the world. The deck is about 245 feet above water. After a fall of 4 seconds, jumpers hit the water at about 75 miles per hour. Most of the jumpers die from impact trauma. Around 5% survive the initial impact, but generally drown or die of hypothermia in the water. So you can walk across the bridge, Matt, because many people jump off of it, unfortunately.
All right, so I think that argument leads to reason that the Golden Gate Bridge is not better than the Brooklyn Bridge. I think that makes it worse.
I'm just talking aesthetically, Matt. Let's move on.
I think it makes it worse.
I've tallied your vote.
It leads to people dying.
I've tallied your vote for aesthetics. Your voice has been heard. Cultural relevance, Matt. I will start. Which bridge is more culturally relevant? I'm going to give it to the Brooklyn Bridge on this one. I'm going to give it to the Brooklyn Bridge because while the Golden Gate Bridge is one of the most photographed bridges in the world, I think San Francisco is a less culturally relevant location for the. If the Golden Gate Bridge were in New York, boom, you'd have like a cultural supernova. I mean, it'd be over at that point. But I think the Brooklyn Bridge, it is such an iconic postcard image in a city in itself that has 3 items on our bracket tonight. So I'm going to give it to the Brooklyn Bridge in terms of cultural relevance. What do you say, Matt?
Thank you. And you know, I'd have to agree. Cultural relevance, I would fight for the Brooklyn Bridge. You know, the Golden Gate Bridge might be the longest, might be the biggest, whatever you want to say. It might be
better in almost every way.
Nah, not necessarily. You might not want to say that because it's untrue. But the Brooklyn Bridge, you can say, I think it is more iconic. I think it really adds something to the landscape of New York City, I think the city wouldn't be the same without it.
I think it better reflects the city it lives in than the Golden Gate Bridge does.
That's 100% true. Because if the Golden Gate Bridge better reflected San Francisco or Oakland, it would be covered in poop and would be like made out of computer code.
Wow, we're just hitting all the stereotypes tonight. So no city is safe. We've even got a landmark in South Dakota, so nowhere is safe. All right, Matt, finally, quickly, overall, I think we know what you're going to say, but between these two bridges, Matt, which is your overall pick?
I think you know what I'm going to say. It's the Brooklyn Bridge.
Okay.
I'm picking the Brooklyn Bridge all the way, baby. Brooklyn, number 1.
All right. Don't push it. Almost as bad as those chumps from Long Island. I am going to say my overall pick is going to be the Golden Gate Bridge. I love the Brooklyn Bridge. It's a solid bridge. Frankly, I think it's got many advantages over the Golden Gate Bridge, but I think the Golden Gate Bridge's size and design really stand it above the Brooklyn Bridge. It's just a bigger bridge. How can you not pick it? But lucky for you, Matt, because I swung over to cultural relevance on the Brooklyn Bridge wins and is moving on to face the Grand Canyon in our next round, where it will get demolished.
We're gonna get so much shit for this, by the way.
That's why we shouldn't do these bracket challenges.
I don't know why this one that we just did. I think is we're gonna hear about it.
We want to hear about it. If people got stuff to say, upfordebatetv@gmail.com or tweet at us at upfordebatetv. Tell us we're wrong. Maybe we'll put out some polls on Twitter or something, and the fans can vote. But Matt, we've got a next one here in our historical matchup. We've got the Gettysburg Battlefield in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania versus the Alamo Mission in San Antonio, Texas. Starting with the Gettysburg Battlefield, you could probably do the fun facts for the Gettysburg Battlefield.
Yeah. Well, I visited there not too long ago. Let me say it's a battlefield indeed, but there's also an excellent museum and an excellent and really a very vastly underrated little town and community nearby. However, we are kind of focusing in on the historical site of the battlefield itself.
Well, Matt, as of 2008, the Gettysburg National Military Park had 1,320 monuments, 410 cannons, 148 historical buildings, 2.5 observation towers, and 41 miles of avenues, roads, and lanes.
Sure. It is also I'm trying to see. Oh, here we go. It's also within 10 miles of the Maryland-Pennsylvania state line. So a lot of people, when they go there, they think it's like in the heart of Pennsylvania.
Oh, sure.
It's really not. extremely close to Maryland. Um, it's like we're kind of right on the line. As a matter of fact, whenever we drive kind of in between, we go up to New York quite a bit. We live down here in Virginia. The Gettysburg exit and the Gettysburg battlefield are usually, something that we pass right by. Matter of fact, not too long ago, we accidentally we were driving back down here, and we accidentally drove into like the town of Gettysburg, and we didn't accidentally. We were stopping off at a McDonald's, and we like looked out right outside the window of the McDonald's, and oh yeah, look, there's Gettysburg battlefield.
Wow, that's a bummer.
It was just unusual and yeah, a little depressing.
Yeah, of course, the Battle of Gettysburg fought July of 1863, the most costly war in U.S. history on U.S. soil. Between 46,000 and 51,000 soldiers were casualties in the three-day battle. The National Military Park receives an annual 3 million visitors a year, Matt. It's going up against the Alamo Mission, famous for the Battle of the Alamo taking place between February and March of 1836, a pivotal event in the Texas Revolution, a 13-day siege from the Mexican troops. The building was originally founded in the 18th century as a Roman Catholic mission, and it was one of the earliest Spanish missions in Texas. It was abandoned for a while, eventually taken up right before this. As of 2002, the Alamo welcomed over 4 million visitors a year, making it one of the most popular historic sites in the United States. Also, that famous movie with... Who was in that movie? Wasn't it Bill... It wasn't Bill Paxton, was it? That one I have to look up.
That I don't know.
The Alamo, 2004's film with Dennis Quaid. That's who it was. I always mix him up with Bill Paxton. Dennis Quaid, Billy Bob Thornton.
Okay.
2004
I'll take your word for it. That sounds like a pretty good, well-made movie.
I mean, it was produced by Ron Howard. So, but anyhow, Matt, we'll start with you. Starting with aesthetics, what do you think of these two places?
Full disclosure here. I we were talking before the show. I have never been to the Alamo. I have indeed been to. I've been to Gettysburg Battlefield a couple of times. We'll start with Gettysburg Battlefield. I think the aesthetics of it are good. I would probably give it a 3.
Okay.
It's pretty in some areas. There's a lot of wide open, vast spaces, but it's unique on this list because it's the only landmark I think that is just kind of a vast space of land,
sure,
so to speak, rather than the Grand Canyon would fit that description too, but a lot of that
That's more of
is
a natural landmark.
The canyon. Yeah, this is a purely historic and natural landmark. It's kind of like a blending of the two, which I think goes more in the cultural relevance category. But in terms of the aesthetics, it's nice. It's got a lot of rich history and interesting visuals depending on where you are. It's very diverse in that regard, and there's a lot of intricate topography, meaning like there's a lot of like high points and ridges that you can kind of look across. It makes it a little diverse in that regard. There, it paints a very beautiful picture.
I fell asleep while you were talking about the hills.
Yeah, it's got a lot of nice hills. I can't say that it's more sexy. The Alamo is definitely sexier, Sean. That's what you want me to say.
Sexy building. I mean, it's a Spanish mission.
It is. It is extremely sexy. I think that Alamo beats it out. I would have to go with. I would
go with the Alamo.
Just from the pictures and videos I've seen of the Alamo, I'd probably give that a 4 in the compartment.
Yeah, Matt. For me, this is an automatic disqualification. Gettysburg Battlefield doesn't even qualify for aesthetics. It doesn't have any because it's not a thing. It's an idea.
Well,
it's just a bunch of ground. I could point to my backyard and declare it a national park because something happened there, but it's not. It's just a place. It's not a. There's nothing to look at. It doesn't have aesthetics. That's like
Yeah.
the idea of freedom doesn't have aesthetics. It's just an idea.
I get your argument there, but at the
But I'm
same
right.
time, I yeah, Gettysburg is not the hill I want to die on.
Is that like a joke?
It was like half a
Is
joke.
that like a joke? That is an
It was half a
too
joke.
soon,
I thought
Matt.
about it.
Too soon. That's in poor taste.
Too soon.
Too soon. Man, got to let some of the pain wear away on that. Now, Matt, what about cultural relevance? I think this is something we can maybe bite into a little bit more of these two. What do you think?
Well, I think cultural relevance. All right. So, you ever see the show King of the Hill?
Yes.
There's a
Propane and propane accessories, yes.
very funny episode of King of the Hill where Hank goes to the Alamo. It's the episode where he's trying to prove to Boomhauer that he's a true Texan because they find out that he was actually born in not in Texas, but he was the story gets told like 3 times, and it changes from being from being born outside of Texas to find out he was born in a bathroom in an airport, and finding out that he was born in a bathroom in an airport in New York, which Hank's like horrified to find this out. So he goes on this giant quest to find out that he's like, to try to prove that he's a true Texan, and he ends up at the Alamo. I won't spoil any more of it. It's probably my favorite episode of the show, so I recommend you go and watch it. But that episode alone, I think, makes the Alamo win out against Gettysburg in terms of cultural value.
Now, Matt, I will say though, on the negative side, of course, famously Ozzy Osbourne urinated on the Alamo. Famously,
I never heard about that. Is that true? Is that a true
yes,
fact?
they tried to kick him out of the state of Texas permanently over that. He got in a lot of trouble for that. The Texans
Yikes.
really like the Alamo, and they take it personally. I think, again, culture, right? How do you define culture? I think Gettysburg. I think if you surveyed an average American, I think more people would know about Gettysburg than the Alamo. Because I think Gettysburg is more important historically. I think it's more important, in terms of like movies and TV, maybe not. Of course, Ken Burns' famous Civil War documentary. I don't know. I'm going to give it to Gettysburg on this. I just think Pennsylvania is great. So I'm going to give that one to the Gettysburg because it's got to win something eventually.
Sean, I just learned through my research that there was apparently a second King of the Hill episode referencing the Alamo. This one, actually, the title of the episode is How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Alamo. And that Hank finds out that Bobby's new Texas history textbook hardly even mentions the Alamo. He teams up with Bruce Tuttle, an aspiring writer-director, to produce a play about the Alamo. However, Bruce ends up creating a revisionist version of the story, and despite Hank's disgust, Bobby must participate in the play to get extra credit and avoid summer school. I vaguely remember this episode, but that really, if anything, just adds to the case of just giving this to the Alamo.
And the Dennis Quaid movie. People keep saying to go back and watch King of the Hill. I've never really seriously watched it. Maybe I should.
It's great. It's a
People
great
seem
show.
to love it.
It's a great show. It's by the way, the episode I was referencing earlier is called Yankee Hanky.
Clever.
Premiered February 4th, 2001. When Hank determines to get a special native Texan license plate for his truck, he first seeks out his birth certificate, certain it will come into play. However, Hank discovers he might have been adopted, but to his horror, Dale determines that his true place of birth is New York, New York. And then basically that, like I said before, he goes on a quest to prove that he's a true-born Texan. Wonderful. The episode ends with him sarcastically remarking that if you get a connecting flight in Dallas, you're a Texan. It's wonderful.
Gotta count it.
Worth basically Texan pride. Great episode. Great show. Give it. Don't judge it on the first episode that you see, as many people do. Just give it some time to kind of marinate. It's one of those shows that has to marinate.
No, a lot of episodes. So
yeah, I would say give it a shot. Maybe like you can make up your mind like 5 or 6 episodes in. I guarantee it does. It has something for everyone.
Now, Matt, just quickly, final thoughts. Gettysburg or the Alamo?
Mm-hmm.
Your winner?
Sean, I guess my overall winner in this one would be the Alamo.
The Alamo. All right.
Yeah.
And at this point, it doesn't matter what I vote because Gettysburg really hasn't won much. I'm going to vote for Gettysburg anyway, but the Alamo will continue on in our bracket to face the winner of this next matchup. The iconic man-made structures, big engineering projects, the Gateway Arch in St. Louis, Missouri, and the Hoover Dam in the border of Nevada and Arizona, Matt. The Gateway Arch is a 630-foot monument in St. Louis. It is the world's tallest arch, the tallest man-made monument in the Western Hemisphere, and Missouri's tallest accessible building. It was built as a monument to westward expansions of the U.S. And officially dedicated to the American people. It was designed by Finnish-American architect Eero Saarinen in 1947. Construction began in 1963 and was completed in 1965 at a cost of $13 million. Fun fact, despite the optical illusion, the Gateway Arch is exactly as wide as it is tall. It's also one of the most visited tourist attractions in the world, over 4 million visitors annually, of which about 1 million travel to the top. It will be going up against the Hoover Dam, the famous dam constructed between 1931 and 1936 during the Great Depression. It is 726 feet from foundation rock to the roadway at the crest of the dam and weighs more than 6.6 million tons. The heavily traveled U.S. Route 93 ran across the dam's crest until October 2010 when the Hoover Dam Bypass Bridge opened. And a sort of mini fun fact here, the Bureau of Reclamation, the department subsidizing the project, supplied a whopping 3.25 million cubic yards of concrete for the dam itself, plus another 1.11 million cubic yards for the power plant and additional facilities. That's enough to build 3,000 miles of road, a full-size highway from one end of the United States to the other. We got some big stuff here.
Yeah. So I'm not going to be much use in this bracket, Sean. Just saying, I haven't really visited either one. In terms of aesthetics, I'm going to give Gateway Arch a 2.
Okay.
I don't find it that creative. I don't really find it that like nice to look at. I mean, it certainly has become iconic over the years, but I mean, that can only really take it so far, I think. So, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and give it a 2 on that aesthetics. What do you think? What are your thoughts?
I mean, Matt, I couldn't disagree with you more. I think the Hoover Dam, aesthetically, it's a dam. I mean, it's a dam. It's a big gray concrete thing. I mean, it's neat because it's big, but aesthetically, there's not much interesting going on there. The arch is incredible. I mean, it's the biggest arch ever constructed. Do you know when they started building it? They obviously started from the 2 points at the ground and met at the top. There were people who thought they wouldn't meet at the top. They thought they would miss each other. Because something like this has never been built before. And the best part is, it's in St. Louis. Why the hell is it in St. Louis? That's crazy. They just made a giant arch. And they invented a special elevator that can go up into the arch.
Why would anybody want to do that?
Because it's tall. People like going on tall things. We've got several tall things here. The Statue of Liberty, the Empire State Building, the Lincoln Memorial. No, that's not a tall thing. Why did I say that? But there are lots of tall things in here you can get on top of. People love that kind of shit. And it's the Gateway Arch. It's just weird. It's weird and it's cool looking, and it's got a great silhouette, and it's illegal to fly planes through it, which I learned. And you get in big trouble if you do that, though people have. And so for me, it's absolutely the arch. This isn't even close in aesthetics.
I'm still not buying it, Sean. I still.
So are you not picking a winner in this, or are you picking the Hoover Dam?
Honestly, I could care less about this section.
Right. You don't have to pick anything. That's fine. You're absolutely allowed to do that, Matt. We make rules here.
Let me just Google a picture of the Hoover Dam.
I mean, it's a big dam, Matt. You could draw it and it would be pretty accurate.
Listen,
Again, the cool thing is it's big. That's the gimmick of the Hoover Dam.
it is very big. That's true.
It was the world's biggest for quite a while. It's not anymore.
Can you go inside the Hoover Dam, Sean?
I don't know. My research did not uncover that. I don't really think so. And even if you did, there's a power plant. There's really not much to see. It's not like a museum. If you believe the Transformers movie, that's where they keep Megatron.
Okay.
Before
I've never seen the Transformers movie.
Yeah.
Can't say that I would care for it if I did. It looks.
The first one was good. I will stand by that opinion. The rest of them were not, but the first one was good.
Keep in mind, yeah, you're on tape. You can't take that back.
I'll say it to anybody. I'll say it to your face. It's not a secret. Look, it's kind of one of those like goofy, fun popcorn movies. The first one. It's not particularly well acted or well made, but it is interesting and it is fun to watch. The other ones are awful, but anyway, that's a bit off topic.
All right, Sean. I think I'm gonna give you full emergency powers here to choose the winner between the Gateway Arch and the Hoover Dam. I really don't. Whatever one makes it in the next round, I think it's gonna have its work cut out for it against the Alamo. So
okay, well I disagree. I'm picking the Gateway Arch because the Gateway Arch is awesome and it's gonna thrash the Alamo in the next round. So
all right, we'll see.
That's my prediction.
Gateway Arch.
Gateway Arch. Moving on. I'm glad you mentioned that, Matt, because we're 45 minutes into the episode and have done half the landmarks. So we're going to pick up the pace here, and we're going to keep rolling with our next matchup. And this is the sort of monument matchup, I guess. And it is the Statue of Liberty, New York, against the Washington Monument in Washington, D.C. Matt, have you been to these? I know you've been to the Washington Monument.
I've definitely been to both of them. I've been up both of them. I've been inside both of them.
You got up in there?
I got up in both of them. Several times, actually.
So. I have never been to the Statue of Liberty, actually. I'm not a real New Yorker like you. So, I didn't get the opportunity.
I can tell.
Yeah, really? You can? I'm shocked. I usually keep that a secret. Now, Matt, the Statue of Liberty, a copper statue, a gift from the people of France to the people of the United States, was designed by French sculptor Frédéric Auguste Bartholdi, and its metal framework was built by the one and only Gustave Eiffel. It is a figure of Libertas, a robed Roman liberty goddess. She holds a torch above her head with her right hand, and in her left hand carries a tablet inscribed with the Roman numerals July IV MD CCL XXVI, or July 4th, 1776. It was built in France and shipped overseas in crates where it was reassembled here in the U.S. It measures 300 feet from the ground to the tip of the flame and is as tall as a 22-story building. In 1886, when it was constructed, it was the tallest structure in New York City. Fun fact, the 7 rays from the statue's crown represent the 7 season continents of the world. Going up against the Washington Monument, located almost due east of the reflecting pool. It is made of marble, granite, and bluestone. It's the world's tallest predominantly stone structure and the world's tallest obelisk, standing 554 feet tall. It's the tallest monumental column in the world, if all are measured above their pedestrian entrances. It was the tallest structure in the world up until 1889 when it was overtaken by the Eiffel Tower. Fun fact, the monument is made of freestanding masonry, which means there is no cement holding those blocks together. They just stay there in place. And also another fun fact, the trowel used to lay the cornerstone of the monument was the same trowel used by George Washington to lay the cornerstone of the Capitol in 1793. Matt, what do we think of these two, starting with the aesthetics? I'll start. I think the Washington Monument should get some credit. I know it's easy to say it's just a big gray pillar, but I think it's pretty and it's neat because it changes colors halfway through, which is another fun fact I won't get into. But I do think it's actually quite neat. They also have a very nice visitor experience inside, going up and the story they tell and getting to the top. It's nice inside and out, but I think the Statue of Liberty has a better aesthetic. It is a unique statue in its color, in its material, in the torch and the crown. And I think putting them side by side, I just think from a design standpoint, there's just a lot to like about the statue. I'm going to take the Statue of Liberty on this, Matt. What do you think?
Yeah. Now I think that the Washington Monument is historically it's a creative idea, even though it may not look it. It's very misleading. It's an obelisk. It harkens back to the days of ancient Egypt or even ancient Rome, the architecture, and it is very unique. I mean, in that not many cities, like no other city, can really claim that central monument. That's that style,
Yeah.
so to speak. It is iconic without being ornate. It kind of accomplishes what the Gateway Arch sets out to do, which is like use simplicity it's simplicity, but simplicity at its best in terms of making it iconic. However, I will give this aesthetic wise, I'll give it to the Statue of Liberty. I think Statue of Liberty. Hey, I'm going to go ahead and give it a 5 out of 5 in terms of aesthetics. I think it's so cool. The Statue of Liberty has not only a great tourist experience if you're visiting, it has a science center, the Liberty Science Center
nearby.
Make any
sense.
It's near. It's not in the Statue of Liberty, but it's very close to
on
it.
the island.
Yeah, I think it is. I want to say yes. I want to say
who
it's
thought
also
it was a good
kind
idea
of
to
on
put a
the island.
science center on the island?
Not on the same island as the statue, but it's on a nearby island.
Ellis
Also
Island?
in
How many
Hudson
islands
Bay.
are there?
There's a couple of little islands in there in
And
the
one
bay.
of them, it has a science center. Are you sure that's not like
Liberty Science Center,
an evil layer for like an evil scientist or something? Because that
maybe
sounds like a movie.
It might be underneath, maybe deep underneath the Liberty Science Center, but it's it's there. A lot of people don't know this. Statue of Liberty is actually in New Jersey. It's a
I didn't even know
Jersey thing.
Isn't it?
Leave me on that.
I don't even know, Matt. Is it in
Look it up.
international waters?
I want to invite
I
want to invite our listeners to investigate my claim further. I claim it's part of New Jersey.
You claim it. All right, Matt claims it.
I do.
Take that for what you will.
I'll stand by it. Liberty Science Center is great. If you've never been there, by the way, excellent. I haven't been there in a really long time, Sean. I went on a field trip in 4th grade. I think that might have been the last time I experienced the Liberty Science Center. But
I'm sure it hasn't changed at all.
It's very cool. I'm sure it got even better since then. I'm optimistic about
science
it.
has gotten better, so
yeah.
Now what about culturally? The cultural relevance of these two buildings. Of course, Statue of Liberty.
This is a tough one.
Famous.
Tough one.
Famous in the film X-Men, part of Magneto's evil plan. Have a big fight scene on top of the Statue of Liberty.
Sure. It's also in The Godfather, one of the best movies of all time.
Haven't seen it.
Godfather 2, I should say. It's in The Godfather Part 2, when Vito Corleone is coming to America for the first time, and he sees the Statue of Liberty, the iconic moment when he makes it to the United States. And the Washington Monument, where's the cultural relevance there?
A big set piece in the latest Spider-Man film, Spider-Man Homecoming. There's a big scene that takes place there.
That's really disappointing. That movie's too new, Sean, to make a cultural impact. Also, I haven't seen it.
Oh well, I will say
I don't really care for Spider-Man.
I think the most important.
Spider-Man's all right.
The most important of all of these is when the Statue of Liberty comes alive in Ghostbusters 2. Terrorizes the city. No, don't remember that?
What's that? The
Ghostbusters 2.
Oh yeah, sure.
Comes alive, terrorizes the city.
It does, yeah. Mm-hmm.
In literally the exact same scene as the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man from the first one.
Classic, yeah. Sean, I'm gonna go ahead and give this to the Statue of Liberty. I think
Yeah, I think so.
that's kind of the decision here.
I'm gonna agree with you. And then overall, Matt.
I will say my piece for the Washington Monument, though, it is cool to get to the top and see. You could literally see all of DC, and you can look out in any direction and see, all the cool monuments and things that DC has to offer. But you can do the same with the Statue of Liberty, although it's closed a lot of the time. But then again, so is Washington Monument. But you can get out of the Statue of Liberty and kind of look out onto the Hudson Bay, look out into and see Manhattan out there. But I think just overall the aesthetics are what wins it over for Statue of Liberty.
Yeah,
is much more iconic.
Frankly, my overall vote would be for the Washington Monument because one of the things we're not grading on here is technical. How technical? Maybe we'll use that in the next round, but. The Washington, the Statue of Liberty, again, interesting. It's just a statue. I mean, it was so easy they could take it apart in France and rebuild it here. The Washington Monument is an engineering feat. Like I mentioned, there's no cement holding those blocks together. It's a freestanding structure with a heavy point on the top of it that they've managed to keep together all of these years. It is in some ways an engineering marvel. So I think it is a pretty interesting building, but I think I'm with you, Matt. I think the Statue of Liberty is going to continue on in our challenge to the next round, where it's going to face the winner of our next matchup. And we got another New York classic. The Empire State Building against Alcatraz Island in San Francisco. Now, of course, the Empire State Building, completed in 1931, a roof height of 1,250 feet, stands a total of 1,454 feet, including its antenna. As of 2017, the fifth tallest completed skyscraper in the U.S. and the 28th tallest in the world. A fun fact about the Empire State Building, you may have noticed its unusual tower at the top. It's a 200-foot tower. It was originally constructed as a mast as a docking point for lighter-than-air dirigibles. And the idea is that airships would maneuver alongside the building, tether themselves, passengers would exit via a gangplank, check in at a customs office, and make their ways to the Manhattan streets in a mere 7 minutes. Despite the enthusiasm for the project, high winds near the building's rooftop proved all but impossible for pilots to negotiate. They only managed to get a blimp there once as a publicity stunt, but it was abandoned shortly after. It is going up against Alcatraz Island, located in San Francisco Bay, 1.25 mile offshore from San Francisco. A small island developed with a lighthouse, a military fortification, a military prison, and a federal prison from 1934 till 1963, where it became a national landmark in 1986. The abandoned prison, it was initially declared a fort, a military reservation in 1850 by President Millard Fillmore. In 1859, 2 years before the Civil War began, troops moved in to defend the Bay Area. In 1907, it became a U.S. military prison and remained one until 1933, where it was transferred to the Bureau of Prisons to become a traditional prison. The island measures 1,675 feet by 590 feet, and the average number of prisoners on site was about 260 at any time.
Okay. Where to begin? I have a fun fact.
Hey, bring it on.
It's a personal fun fact, Sean. Sure. My grandpa helped build the Empire State Building.
Really? Go on.
He was on the construction crew when it was first being built, whenever that was. Back in...
I just said it, and then I forgot it. It was completed in 1931.
1931. There you go.
Yeah, Matt, the building was assembled in about 400 days. An average crew of 3,400 workers at any given time were working on site, one of the fastest construction projects in history.
Yep.
I guess you really are a New Yorker. I take back what I said.
Hey, I'm walking here.
Well, you are walking here.
So I let's start out with the aesthetics. What do you think about Art Deco?
I live for Art Deco. Art Deco is amazing.
Do you?
Authentic Art Deco. Replica Art Deco, not so much. But like the Chrysler building and the GE building and all these
Yeah, Empire State Building is another
era.
Famous example of the Art Deco style. I think Art Deco is pretty cool.
I think it's great. The problem is it makes for a crappy building to like live and work in. Like I wouldn't want to work in the Empire State Building because everything is small and old and crappy.
Mm-hmm.
But Really cool to look at. Really iconic. Great shape.
I love how the Art Deco, something about it just captures the zeitgeist of the time, you know, the time
Absolutely.
period, the pre-World War One time period, just kind of frozen in there. It's like the early 20th century looking to the future, and like us looking back into the past is how we would evaluate Art Deco.
Yeah.
Um, but other than that, it's got the Art Deco style going for it. But other than that, it's and the fact that it's tallest building in Manhattan.
And it's great because, modern skyscrapers, it's all about curves and it's all about glass and it's all about shapes. But back then it was like it's just a big blocky friggin' building. Like that's it. I mean, it does remind me a little bit of kind of the World Trade Center building, the original World Trade Center's buildings a little bit, where it's like they're just big and blocky. And there's something to me really about that, where it's got this big chunky base and then they built this tower on top to see how high they could make it. Like, I don't know. There's just something really neat about that, where they didn't have computers to build this. Someone just had to figure this shit out. So, there's something to that. Alcatraz Island, on the other hand, it's a prison on an island in a bay. I don't think there's much aesthetics to it other than being wind beaten and salt beaten, and I hear it's very nice.
Yeah.
I've never been.
The thing about Alcatraz, it's hard to gauge its aesthetics because it was a prison, so it's kind of like they didn't build it with aesthetics in mind. That being said, if you were to take the full aesthetics of the San Francisco Bay, now that area it is very nice. It is very, very beautiful. It is very picturesque. But the building itself, like you said, it's a prison. It's not supposed to be aesthetically beautiful or pretty. And we're not, it's not Hudson Bay versus San Francisco Bay.
Right.
This competition is Empire State Building versus Alcatraz Island. So I have to give the aesthetics to the Empire State Building.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on that. But what do you think about cultural relevance? Of course, Empire State Building, iconic in a large number of ways. Of course, King Kong, maybe perhaps the most famous Empire State reference.
Right. King Kong climbing to the top of the Empire State Building is one of the most iconic moments in film of all time. Alcatraz Island, you've got the backstory with Al Capone. You've got The Rock, which is a terrific, unbelievably good movie, featuring Sean Connery and Nick Cage, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Great movie. But I think for cultural relevance, you got to give it to the Empire State Building. They named the whole state. The whole state got a nickname because of it.
Actually, man, it was the Empire State before the building.
You sure about that,
yes,
Sean?
The building was named after the state. Is this another Matt Claims thing?
Listen, this is a chicken and egg situation here. I think it's up for our viewers to decide. We'll let it be their decision.
I ain't waiting. I'm just gonna Google it and get to the answer because I'm not willing to wait here. There are several theories to the origin of the name. Two of them involve George Washington proclaiming proclaimed New York the seat of an empire.
Yeah, but he didn't call it the Empire State, Sean.
No, but
it came from the building.
No, it didn't.
They said this is the Empire State Building. They said there can be no other name.
No,
this is the name that was prophesized, and then the state of New York earned its nickname from the building.
Matt, it says here
the only way. There's no other way. There's no other explanation.
In 1820, the name had caught on. And then by 1940, there were books, Guide to the Empire State. The Empire State Building opened in 1931. It had been around for 100 years before the building.
This is very clearly fake news, Sean. You're being lied to by the mainstream media.
The Empire State Express train line
the building
was
was named
established
after
50 years before the building.
the state was named after the building. I'm telling you, trust me. I'm a New Yorker.
Okay.
A New Yorker.
I can't argue with that.
True and
Not
true.
at all. But I will say, I do want to give some. I think for me, cultural. Actually, I'm going to give it to Alcatraz, and I think the reason is that I think the myth of Alcatraz, the stories, the tales, are more interesting than the Empire State Building, which is, by all respects, a building. It's not like the arch in St. Louis. It's just a building. I mean, it's tall, which is cool, and it's neat to look at, but it's really just a build. It's like people work there. Like it's not like a memorial, or it's just a building, you know. But Alcatraz, could anyone ever escape? Did people escape? Who was there when it was shut down as a prison? And there's a whole bunch of stories about its whole history. I'm going to give it to. We'll split that one, the cultural relevance, and then Matt, we have to ask, what's your overall winner in this match?
My overall winner, I think Empire State Building. It's got to be the Empire State Building. In terms of cultural relevance, you know, it has the name of the state right in it, Empire State. It's iconic. Whenever people go to New York City, you know, the general stereotype is they go to visit the Empire State Building first and foremost, even before the Statue of Liberty. The first thought is usually, you know, seems to be, you know, take me to the Empire State Building. Take me to see that.
It's lasted the test of time for sure.
So,
well, Empire is going to win. It's going to move on to the next round. It's going to face the Statue of Liberty in the all-New York battle. And interestingly enough, Matt, I find this suspicious. All three of our New York entries have moved on to the next round.
Can't explain that.
And two of them beat San Francisco items.
They sure did. Can't explain that. I don't know. It just it is what it is.
Total coincidence. Now, in our next matchup, Matt, Washington, D.C. is right now 0-1 with the Washington Monument losing. Can they have a comeback with the next matchup? The matchup of the presidents, Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. versus Mount Rushmore in Keystone, South Dakota. Start with Mount Rushmore. Sculptor Gutzon Borglum created these sculptures, designed and oversaw the project from 1927 to 1941. The sculptures feature 60-foot tall heads of George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Theodore Roosevelt, and Abraham Lincoln. It took 14 years to complete. Over that time, some 400 workers erected the sculpture, removing 410,000 tons of rock. That's going up against the Lincoln Memorial, the monument in Washington, D.C. to the 16th President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln. William H. Taft dedicated the memorial on May of 1922, presented it to President Warren G. Harding. Lincoln's only surviving son was in attendance that day. Fun fact. That's not really a fun fact. That's all I got to say about the Lincoln Memorial. I got a bunch of other facts, but they're not very interesting. Mount Rushmore, Lincoln Memorial, two big presidents here, going head-to-head. Starting with the aesthetics, I'll kick us off. You know, I think the biggest thing the Lincoln Memorial has going for it has a building around it. So you got a little more to judge, right? I think if you were just doing the heads versus Lincoln in his throne chair, I'd probably give it to the president's head. But God, the Lincoln Memorial's got that awesome Greek column-looking building around it.
That's right.
Of which one of my fun facts is that more than half of the construction is actually underneath it. It extends 66 feet into the earth at its deepest point to support the weight of the marble structure. So it's an enormous structure that they built versus carving it out of stone. So I think visually, while big head presidents are cool, I think the building and the statue itself are more aesthetically impressive. So I'm going to give it to the Lincoln Memorial on this one. What do you think, Matt? We've agreed a lot in this, I should point out.
We have. So why not? I'm going to go ahead and disagree with you here. Just for the hell of it.
Wow. Damn.
I haven't even been to Mount Rushmore, but I think Mount Rushmore is just a totally unique and brilliant spectacle for the American tourist. Like,
Okay.
there's no other place. Think about it. Like, we have monuments, we have memorials all over the place. But how often are they carved literally right into the side of a rock? You know? That doesn't really happen very often. You don't really see that all the
I mean,
time.
there's a couple other places where that's happened.
Where
but
where in the United States do you see
yeah,
that?
no, there are a couple. There's what's the one of the Indian
Carved right
head?
into a rock. Yeah, that's you're thinking of Crazy Horse.
Yes.
That's right across the way from the Mount Rushmore. It's actually
It still
supposed to be
counts.
like they're like facing each other, which I think just adds to the brilliance of Mount Rushmore. I think that whole concept is really cool. That was the original intention. I think was supposed to be like the two of them facing each other, if I remember correctly, like Crazy Horse and then the presidents. It just, I think it adds to but then they never finished the Crazy Horse Memorial. It's unfinished. I think the guy gave up halfway through or something like that. But Sean, let me ask you this. When you go to the Lincoln Memorial, are you allowed to get anywhere near the statue? Like, can you sit on the Lincoln Memorial's lap?
Not if security keeps removing me.
Yeah, exactly. Do you know at Mount Rushmore, you could do whatever you want. You can climb all over the place. I'm pretty sure. I don't know. I've never actually been there.
Wow, another Matt claims.
I'm pretty sure you can just do whatever you want. Listen, cultural relevance.
You can pick
All
George
I'm
Washington's
saying,
nose.
you've got the I Have a Dream speech in front of the Lincoln Memorial. But
Sure.
Sean, have you ever seen the Hitchcock film North by Northwest?
Believe it or not, Matt, I actually have. That's a great movie.
Really?
I've seen I think 3 Hitchcock movies. That's one of them. Great movie.
Color me surprised. I really was
enjoyed it.
not expecting you
Yeah,
to have
I
said
like
yes.
Hitchcock. I keep meaning to watch more of it. And what's funny is I've never seen any of his iconic ones. Like I haven't seen Rear Window, The Birds. I've seen North by Northwest, Marnie with Sean Connery, and Frenzy, which was one of the ones he did in Europe. That's actually a very good movie. If you get a chance to see Frenzy, that's a great
Frenzy.
movie. Yes, that's
Now, see, I haven't seen as much Hitchcock
yeah.
as I should have by far.
But that's a great scene in North by Northwest.
But I love North by Northwest. I'm a huge fan of it. One of my favorite all time movies, gotta be. I think that there's that iconic scene at the end where he runs around and goes all over the place.
On top of the head, yeah.
They fight on top of it. So culturally, I gotta give it to Mount Rushmore.
But Matt, you got to remember, of course, the Lincoln Memorial famously portrayed on screen in everyone's favorite film.
Forrest Gump.
Wrong. Also, never seen it. The iconic Tim Burton, Mark Wahlberg Planet of the Apes remake, where at the end Mark Wahlberg comes back to Earth, and it's not Lincoln, it's Monkey Lincoln.
Ah, damn, that's like -5 points. I forgot that movie
in one of the
existed.
dumbest twists in movie history.
I totally forgot that movie even existed until you just mentioned it.
I'm sure Tim
And
Burton also wishes it didn't exist.
my life is now much worse because you just mentioned it.
You're welcome. My gift to you.
God, I was hoping that movie was just a terrible fever dream.
Nope.
Piece of crap.
Nope. So I think we're both going to vote for Mount Rushmore on that one.
I think
for
so.
cultural. And then overall, Matt, Lincoln Memorial, Mount Rushmore. Got to pick a winner.
I got to pick a winner between the two. I'm going to go with the Lincoln Memorial. Ha! Spoiler. Or a plot twist, whatever.
I'm surprised.
I think the Lincoln Memorial is cool. I think that it's the best part about the Lincoln Memorial is that there's stuff around it. There's nothing around the Washington Monument. I mean, the Mount Rushmore. It's just out in the middle of nowhere.
But see, that's funny to me because I'm going to pick Mount Rushmore because I like the natural element of it. And I know I said aesthetically I like the building, but overall, I like the fact that it's just a mountain with heads on it. Like, that's neat. Like, people build buildings all the time. It's uncommon. That's kind of like the Arch. It's kind of my same argument where it's just bizarre that you just like turn your head and holy shit, there are a bunch of faces in this mountain. Some guy just used dynamite to make. Like, that's again, technically, you got to give it up to the Washington Monument. The Mount Rushmore, they used dynamite to make it. They literally blew the faces with dynamite.
That is really cool.
Crazy. So I'm going to give it up to Mount Rushmore. And Matt, believe it or not, based on our scores here, Mount Rushmore wins.
Mount Rushmore wins. How about that?
Moving on to the next round, facing the winner of our final matchup this evening, Matt. Thank God, because we're an hour and 15 minutes. So hope people are enjoying this bonus content. I sort of call this the touristy sort of family destination bracket, I guess. It's not really, I don't know. I don't know. It's the Kennedy Space Center in Florida versus Disneyland in Anaheim, California. The Kennedy Space Center began in 1968. Since 1968, it's been NASA's primary launch center for human spaceflight. There are about 700 facilities and buildings grouped across the center's 144,000 acres. Unique buildings include the 525-foot tall vehicle assembly building, where they actually assemble the rockets. It's the fourth largest freestanding building in the world. It has been the launch site for every U.S. manned spaceflight since 1968. It's also a important wildlife sanctuary. Only 9% of the land is developed, and it takes place. It has several wildlife refuges in there. Going up against Disneyland, developed by Walt Disney in the 30s and 40s. Disney bought a 160-acre lot in Anaheim in 1953, construction beginning in 54 and opening in 1955. It has a larger cumulative attendance than any other theme park in the world, with over 708 million visitors since it opened. In 2017, 18.3 million visitors, by far the most visited attraction in the list that we've shared today. It originally opened with 18 attractions. It now has 51, and that doesn't include Disney's California Adventure next door. And a fun fact, Disneyland estimates that they sell more than 2.8 million churros every year.
Churros.
A lot of churros. 2.8 million.
2.8 million churros.
A lot of churros. So an interesting matchup here, Matt.
Yeah. You said you've been to Kennedy Space Center, right?
I have been. I went when I was young. I must have been maybe 7 or 8, but I do remember it. Of course, I went to the touristy parts.
How are the aesthetics?
Rockets. It's nice. It's nice. The problem is it's near Orlando, so it's like you can go to Disney World, you can go to Universal Studios, or you can go to Kennedy Space Center. Like, it's kind of if you're really into space, it's cool. But it's got a lot of competition in the region. That's the issue. I would recommend, if you're in Houston, go to Johnson Space Center. That is a really great, they do a very nice job there, if you ever have the opportunity, but where Mission Control is. But no, Kennedy Space Center is very nice. They got the big rockets in the building, and you can tour. They got all kinds of demonstrations, and they take you around a little cart. You see the big buildings. They do a very nice job. Nice job.
Interesting.
I mean, they don't really launch a lot out of there anymore. It's mostly like satellites and small rockets, obviously. Not as active as it used to be.
All right. I have to say I haven't been to either one of these locations. I'm trying to look up as much as I can right now, and it really looks like the Kennedy Space Center is very surprisingly got a lot going on here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of, it's where they're developing parts for the space station. It's where they're developing transportation vehicles of the future. A lot of development goes on there. The actual like human space survival, like space suits and things like that, they do in Houston. They have a center there for that. But the actual vehicles and stuff is a lot in Florida at the Kennedy Space Center. Of course, is where they assemble the rockets and wheel them out to. That's where all the launch pads are. It's a nice facility out there. The issue is, if we start talking aesthetics, Kennedy Space Center, not a lot to look at. It's a lot of runways. It's a lot of launch pads. There are a few cool buildings. I think Disneyland by far has to win aesthetics. I mean, it's a goddamn theme park, for God's sakes. There's just so much more to look at than what's going on at the Kennedy Space Center.
Right.
I would argue.
It's totally built around the aesthetics.
It's a strength. It's a category it's going to do well in, no matter who it's up against. Take that into
account. Yeah, indeed. Mm-hmm.
But when you look at the cultural relevance, this one's, I think, is a little tougher. Because, of course, Disneyland, as I mentioned, the most visited theme park. Actually, technically, the second most visited theme park. Magic Kingdom in Orlando does get more visitors. But the second most visited theme park in the world. However, the Kennedy Space Center, I mean, a moment in history. I mean, that talk about historical relevance. the mission to the moon was launched from the Kennedy Space Center. You know, the space shuttle launched many times from the Kennedy Space Center. I mean, a really important, all of NASA's great science space history happened at the Kennedy Space Center. I mean, it really is, you could argue there and the Johnson Space Center in Houston really are the two primary sites for space travel in the U.S. So certainly in a historical, cultural sense, very relevant.
Interesting. This is a tough one. Going in, I was kind of inclined to give it to Disneyland, but now I'm kind of doing a little bit of a reconsideration here, and I'm thinking leaning more toward Kennedy.
So specifically on cultural relevance, who do you think wins?
Cultural relevance alone, it's got to be Disneyland. I think
Okay.
it's, Disney, the specter of Disney has consumed pretty much all media,
Sure.
for the past 40, 50 years going on. But the thing with the space is that while Kennedy Space Center is an iconic landmark for sure, you also have the city of Houston, right? Which where like center, command
mission control. Yeah.
mission control is located.
Yeah.
And I think that can be argued that is, the same, if not more, level of cultural relevance as
Sure.
Kennedy Space.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, and with going from that mindset, I gotta give it to Disneyland.
Matt, I'm gonna disagree with you on the cultural
Okay.
relevance piece because I do think, again, we're defining culture in a lot of different ways. I think from a movie and TV, sort of that type of pop culture, I agree Disneyland definitely more relevant, but I really think some credit has to be given to the Kennedy Space Center for its historical significance in a way that Disneyland simply cannot compete with. The sort of science element to it, I'm going to give it to the Space Center on that one. But Matt, we got to talk overall. You got to pick a winner between these two. It's a tough one.
I do. Yeah.
They're two very different. Probably the two most, because we kind of grouped these by similar types, but these might be some of the two most different we had to talk about tonight. So where do you think between these, Kennedy Space Center, Disneyland, who is your winner?
Between Kennedy and
Disneyland, yeah.
Disneyland, my winner is, gosh.
And you got to remember, Matt, though this really shouldn't factor in your
Tough
decision,
one.
the winner is going to take on Mount Rushmore next week.
My personal winner is still going to be Disneyland.
Okay.
I'm going to Disneyland. That's the, that iconic statement. It's so pervasive in the culture in a way that I think Kennedy Space Center just isn't. It's not, when we say, I think when the first person, if you were to ask any Joe out on the street if they've heard of Disneyland, of course they've heard of Disneyland. Have they heard of the Kennedy Space Center? Maybe, but I think there's still a few who maybe haven't. I'm gonna give it to Disneyland personally.
Matt, I
on that one.
totally hear what you're saying. I don't disagree with any of that. I think it's a tough matchup either way. Frankly, when I was making this bracket, there are less U.S. landmarks than you would think. So had to throw in a couple. But I agree with you. And Disneyland is going to move on to the next round, Matt. And that's it. We've gone through all 16 landmarks, all 8 matches this evening. Some contentious, some less so. I think the bridges were probably our most contentious back and forth.
Sure.
Let's do a very, very quick recap of what we'll be seeing next week. Are 4 matches that will lead us even closer to determining a winner. First up, in our natural landmarks versus bridge battle, the Grand Canyon versus the Brooklyn Bridge. We'll also see, in terms of historical places, we'll see the Alamo taking on the Gateway Arch in St. Louis, Missouri. We will also see the Battle of New York, the Statue of Liberty taking on the Empire State Building. And lastly, we will see the Mount Rushmore taking on Disneyland. So those will be our matchups next week. We'll use a whole different set of metrics to confuse everything, which will be fun. Next week, we're going to take those 8, narrow them down to 4, narrow them down to 2, and then finally have one winner by the end of the episode. You're not going to want to miss it as we declare the number 1 U.S. landmark. It's going to be a great episode. We got to wrap up this one, though. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Hope you had as much fun as we did going through this. Everything about the show is on our website, upfordebate.tv. Go there, get the latest episodes. You can also check out the archive. Just click the archive button, see all of our past episodes. You can also click the subscribe button and get every link to where you can get the show: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, Stitcher, any major podcast app. We're there. You can also get the video version on YouTube. And, of course, you can reach out to us. Tell us how dumb we were this evening and how this doesn't make any sense and why are you guys doing this. Use upfordebatetv@gmail.com to email us or tweet at us at upfordebatetv. We love hearing from you. That's going to do it this week, though. We got to end it here. We'll be back next time with the conclusion of our exciting bracket. Until then, I'm Sean. He's Matt. We appreciate you being here. We'll see you next time for more landmark debate here on Up for Debate.